we will definitely see. But yo, let's go ahead and get into this. Hey, saying I'll be fine with the Pac-12 championship. I understand. Yo, let's go ahead and get into this because yesterday is Saturday, but there were games on Thursday and Friday night. So we're going to give you a quick Thursday night recap. And we got to start in my conference, the ACC. NC State rallies to beat Vatech late. Look, this game was 3-0 at the half. Yeah. NC State. Yeah. You know what I mean? For those of you who don't know, NC State's all-world quarterback, Devin Leary, is hurt, was not playing in this game, had the backup Hamilton play for him. Subpar. He looked like a backup coming in. He doesn't really know the offense. He really was having a hard time moving the ball, and it showed early in that game. NC State was getting rocked in the first, third quarter. You got Vatech, 21 points, man. Like, they've been playing terrible all year, man. Does this say anything about Vatech? Let me start there.
To me, this doesn't say anything about Virginia Tech. This is all NC State for me. Because as a top 25 team, and we've talked about Virginia Tech quite a bit this year and them not being a very good team, this shows how much Devin Leary meant to NC State.
Yes.
Because this is back-to-back weeks now where you had a double-digit deficit going into the fourth quarter, and you had to steal it at the end. So, to me, NC State without Devin Leary is not – well, I mean, they're barely a top 25 team as of now, and I don't think they're going to remain a top 25 team. It just sucks to see because with Leary, they were a top 10 football team at one point.
Well, and we all knew, I mean, it was kind of, I don't want to say it was fool's gold that they got ranked so high. I mean, they did have a great season last year, and they were returning a lot of those guys. But like you said, when you have a team where you lose one piece and then all of a sudden they're kind of flatlining almost. Again, they won this game. Just so we know where I stand. Yeah,
I think you guys will smoke them. I don't think it'll be close.
And that's the thing. I just don't think this is the same team without Leary. They barely got through in this game. They still have Thayer at wide receiver, who was their all-world receiver, and his brother at linebacker. So they have pieces. They have those linebackers that are solid and a nice defense. But still, man, I mean, in college football, it's like that sometimes. One guy's gone, that's it. So we'll see how they go from here on out. But, it's not looking good. We talked about Virginia Tech. Brent Pryett, coach, first-year guy. He's on a 5-game losing streak. So look, I know it takes a couple years sometimes to get these guys in there. But, I'm used to Beamer ball. I'm used to those guys way back when. And now these last couple years have been rough for them. So, personally, being a Virginia guy, I was never a Virginia Tech fan, so I'm all like, okay. But as far as them, man, hopefully they can get this thing together because it's a lot better when they're competitive.
Yes, absolutely.
So, let's move on real quick. Southern Miss moves to 5-3 after beating University of Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, 39-24. And I'm gonna start on the losing end of this. UL, Raging Cajuns. I talked about them last year. You know what I mean? Having a solid season the last couple years under Coach Billy Napier. We know he's actually playing in the world, or coaching the world's largest cocktail party today for Florida. This team is very different without him. I mean, they've been struggling under Michael Desmore as their first-year head coach. What do you think about this, man?
I mean, like, it's tough to look at them this year based on, like you said, how Napier had them. Yeah. It shows how good of a coach Napier is.
Right.
To have a school like Louisiana who for so long had struggled and made them relevant.
Yeah.
So I think everyone kind of was just like used to it at this point, and then they kind of fall back off, which, I mean, first-year head coach is a little understandable. But, I mean, Southern Mississippi is an okay team. Like, I mean, you look at the numbers for them. Their quarterback was 8 of 17, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Yeah. Frank Gore Jr. is the running back, 23 carries, 87 yards.
Right.
Like, the numbers don't wow you. Like, It was for 39-24. It's a tough one, and that would have been a tough one to watch.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those other games that maybe you're like, oh, nothing else is on. Let me go ahead and check this out. But it is upsetting to see UL now down to 4-4, 2 games out of a potential bowl after they've done so well in the last couple years. And Southern Miss, they got it done. This thing was over at the half. It was 29-11. And the second half, it really wasn't much. But like you said, it really wasn't this offensive explosion. It was just a balanced attack against a team in UL that is just struggling. They're struggling. So we'll see how that goes down the line. Let's go ahead and move on to a Pac-12 matchup. Utah, number 14. Utah holds off Washington State 21-17. And I think the bigger story of this, Cam Rising out this game. Bryson Barnes had to come in there and take it away. It was bigger margin early. Washington State came back a little bit late. Does this say, should we be worried about Utah? Another one of those situations where star players out, or one of the stars are out. Should we be worried?
I don't think so, because it doesn't sound like Rising's going to be out very long. Like, they asked Whittingham about it after the game, the head coach, and his quote is he just didn't feel like he was right. It was Cam's decision. If Cam says he can't play, he can't play. So there was no doubting him whatsoever.
Ooh, okay.
So it was Cam's decision to sit out the game. And I think what it was is Cam's realizing there's bigger games ahead. Yes. They still got to play Oregon probably twice, obviously, with the Pac-12 championship. I believe they still have to play Washington, if I'm not mistaken. So there's bigger games ahead. So take this week to get yourself right. Trust that your backup can steal you the win at this point and come back in and be ready to go next week.
Oh, yeah. They have a Stanford team that's 3-4. And then, like you said, Oregon. And then they have Colorado. So they might get a breeze at the end. But, definitely Stanford team is – we'll discuss them a little bit later. They're not – their schedule is not indicative of how they actually can play. And we already know what Oregon can do. So, it's definitely going to be interesting in this one. Washington State, one of the teams I was kind of excited about towards the beginning of the year, 4-4. They're doing what they can. Ward, there's times where Ward looks great. He had over 200 in the air. He had 28 in that one touchdown where he called his own number that actually kind of brought them back in the game.
Yeah.
But still, nothing's different. It's 4-4. It's, a couple games out of a bowl. I mean, was I too excited about these guys earlier in the year, man?
I don't think so, because I was the same way. Like, Washington State's always one of those teams where they're so fun to watch. Mm-hmm. But you think their record's going to be better. Now, I mean, I still fully expect them to get into a bowl game and still, like, 4-4, you still got lots of time. You got a month left to get your bowl game. I feel like they'll lock it up. But, they're a very fun team to watch week in and week out. So,
absolutely. And they got Stanford, Arizona State, Arizona, and Washington. So they can get 3 of those, because I don't think they're going to get the Washington one. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, college football is any given Saturday, so
that's why we love it.
Yeah,
that is why we love it. Yo, let's move on to the Friday night games. There was only 2 games on last night, and ECU was one of those. Eastern Carolina wins in a close one on a last-second field goal to beat BYU 27-24. Eastern Carolina is a team, we talked about them in the first week against the aforementioned North Carolina State. We thought they were going to get that upset and get the win. They came a couple missed field goal and missed extra point away from actually getting that W. It's great now that they win on the game winner at expiration as it expires. They're 6-3. They're bowl eligible. This is a good story. I like what they're doing. They have wins over now BYU, Memphis. Who else they beat? ODU. All these are teams that might not be great on like top 25 spectrum, but definitely are solid in conference play. So what do you think of ECU and that W?
Oh, I love it. I love any time that these smaller conference schools come in and have these good records and get bowl eligible and can get themselves on television more. That's the big thing for me. Get these guys exposure, because there's still tons of very good players at these schools.
Yep.
And when you're playing an NC State, when you play BYU, there's a good chance you're going to get on TV. Yep. So for me, that's everything. Is let's try and get as many of these guys exposure as possible. And especially when they go in and just about steal the game from NC State week 1 and come in and beat BYU in their stadium. Like, these are quality games, whether they're wins or losses. And it shows you that, hey, some of these smaller schools can hang with these big schools.
Right. And look, you already know the recipe for success, especially when these close games, is running the ball. Keaton Mitchell had 21 carries for over 170 yards and a touchdown in this game. And we all know what Holton Ahlers can do, the quarterback, but I feel like this was better for him because he does sometimes have a propensity to throw it to the other team if the game gets too high scoring. So keeping this where he's a game manager, Mitchell let him grind out, run the ball, and play solid defense. They were able to beat a very good BYU team. And I got to come to you for this one. One of our buddies at remember Gator Nation, Andrew O'Bear, shout out to that guy, North Sports Dynasty. He's been telling us Jaron Hall all year, one of the top QBs that can go in this draft. At least by wins, he has not been. It hasn't been as great. Is this indicative of the team or him? Should we be worried about him?
I mean, if you look at the games that he's in, he's putting good numbers up.
True.
So I think it's more so the team. But I mean, you look at their schedule, they had Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, Arkansas. Like, they played some damn good teams.
Very true.
And I mean, they lost to Arkansas, lost to Notre Dame, which Notre Dame was at home. Like, they went to Notre Dame. So, I mean, a little understandable. Went to Oregon. They beat Baylor in overtime. But a lot of these games, it's like, okay, they play the tough team, and then they kind of have a close one against a Wyoming or a Utah State. Then they come in and play Notre Dame and Arkansas, and then they lose to Liberty. Like, there's a lot of that, like, back and forth. It's almost like you've got two different teams. They're playing to the level of their opponents, if that makes sense.
Right. And that makes a big difference. That definitely makes a big difference, playing that tougher talent. But this is where I will make the argument for him. The guy is still dominating. He's 11th in passing overall. He has 2,245 yards, 21 touchdowns, and I think the best stat, 3 interceptions. Okay?
Yeah.
This guy is playing ball against top talent. We've seen the quarterbacks that have come out of BYU, most recently Zach Wilson. He's a junior this year. Would you advise him? If you're his guidance counselor, coach, whatever, would you advise him to go this year? Or would you say stay one more year and see if you can build on that draft stock?
Me personally, I would stay one more year just because this is a loaded quarterback class coming up.
Yes.
And then the next one doesn't seem to be as strong. But, I mean, with the numbers he's putting up, I don't necessarily think he can go wrong either way. Because anytime you have a 7-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, that's pretty ridiculous. Like, that's a good season.
Oh, yeah. And look, he has definitely winnable games in actually a 5-2 Boise State game. That's gonna be interesting. Utah Tech is 1-6. They could beat them. Stanford, we've talked about them. There are games that they can win going down the stretch to pull this season out and get them into a bowl. But as for him, and right on time, man. What's going on, Andrew? So, Andrew, if you're in the comments, I'll pose a question that I just asked Alex. Your guy, Jaron Hall, over 2,200 passing yards, over 20 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. He is a junior. Would you advise him as his coach or guidance counselor or whatever to forego his senior year and go pro? Or would you say, hey, get one more year under your belt, get some work, so you'll move your draft stock up? Hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you think. It's a good win for ECU. And I think in the long run, this doesn't look as bad for BYU because ECU is not a slouch. They're not a terrible team. They've had great years. And as you see this year, they're playing pretty solid. So, shout out to them getting the W, man. And on a game that I'm almost guaranteeing even the most staunch college football fans might not have watched.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about us two. Because I look, this was FIU, shout out to them getting a victory in double overtime against Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech ain't great. FIU is actually having a better season at I believe 4-4 now. Is making it. L Tech is 2-6, but
yeah,
you get the W. That always helps you. Do you have anything on this game?
I mean, obviously the double overtime, it probably was an interesting game to watch, but like you said, I don't think really anyone was watching it. I don't really got much on this one, to be quite honest.
No. Hey, shout out to James, their quarterback. Over 30 completions, 300 yards, and 3 TDs in this game. Now, obviously, that was stretched out through the 2 overtimes. But at the end of the game, in overtime, they won it on the back of Lexington Joseph. He had only 37 carries, but he had 2 crucial overtime touchdowns that ended up being one of them being the difference in this ball game. Yeah. Shout out to FIU. They've had a rougher year, but getting this win, a get-right win, was definitely good for them. Andrew commented, he said, one more year, draft stock might go up and push Caleb Williams for number 1 next year if he plays good. Okay, I like that. Yeah.
And you look at it for quarterbacks next year, you've got Caleb Williams is kind of the clear number 1 right now. To me, Anthony Richardson's probably going to stay back for Florida.
Yep.
So he's another guy. Maybe JJ McCarthy out of Michigan.
True.
He'll be a junior next year, so next year might be his last year. But other than that, there's not much. Where this year you have Stroud, Levis, Young, Sam Hartman. Like the list goes and goes and goes, right? So if I'm him, I stay back.
Yeah, because honestly, Hall, if you get in there this year, I mean, you're moving down to 4th, 5th round easily, and at that point, with the top heavy QB draft, who knows where you're going to end up? And you're going to end up somewhere buried on somebody's depth chart or in a practice squad. And I think there's too much talent that Jaron Hall has to put him on there. Worse, they might even try to switch him to like another position because he's so athletic. So let's hope he stays put as is. Thanks for watching. If you like that clip, be sure to check out the other great content from the Let's Talk Football community. And as always, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when more great content like this becomes available.